Konnichiwa. So, welcome back. I don't really remember where I left off at. So, I started pulling the cylinder head apart. I got the cams out because it was blah blah blah. Didn't really need to take the cams out, but I traded them and part of the deal for getting the new head. So, cams are out, coolant's drained from the engine. The exhaust manifold is loose. It's just kind of dangling there. Other than that, there's a couple of vacuum lines and stuff that need to be undone once the vacuum lines are out, and the rest of the wires are disconnected. I can go ahead and break the head bolts loose, and I should be able to pull the head off. Not quite there yet. I figure before I get that far, I'm gonna go ahead and prep the new head. It's dragging my feet. So, a couple little things have to be done in order to adapt this head for front wheel drive. So one of the issues is for the Miata, this water neck is on here because, like I said before, the Mazda BP engine was developed for front wheel drive, or for what do you call it, horizontal installation, and in the Miata, obviously, it's longitudinal, so some changes had to be made when it was mounted in the Miata. One of the changes they did was they changed the way the coolant flowed through the engine, because it was easier to, since the whole front of the engine was there, coolant actually flowed from the pump to the front of the head, as opposed to, from the front of the engine to the back of the engine. So it was kind of a weird thing. So anyways, this water neck that I've already broken loose, but I just kind of wanted to put it on there to show you what it looked like. I believe this was also the thermostat housing, or the thermostat housing was in there somewhere or something. But we don't need that where we're going. So anyways, that comes off, and then of course what we have to do is, now we've got this hole here that we have to fill. So, a couple of ways you can go about this. One is just kind of making a little block off plate to block this off, and siliconing around it and bolting it on. The other way is you can put a freeze plug in there. I'm going to do both. So I actually found a kit on eBay. It's I believe that's Holley, Hawley, or Hawley. I don't know. I'm gonna go with Holley, just spelled weird with a W in the middle there. But anyways, they sell a nice little kit, $25. Probably kind of expensive for what it really is, but anyways, it's a nice, looks like a laser cut plate. So, nice laser cut plate, bolts on there, and also comes with the freeze plug that will be pounded into there. So before I put the freeze plug in, I'm going to clean that out a little bit. I'm also going to silicone this on. I would just do the freeze plug, but I'm kind of worried since coolant has been flowed through this bore for so long, this surface may be imperfect, so I'm just going to do both. I'm going to do the freeze plug and the plate, which is why they sell it, but I'm going to silicone the plate just to be sure that this doesn't leak. Another item I bought, which was kind of cool, I forgot the name of the company, but it's just a little cam gear alignment tool, so that once the cams are on, I can just align the cams, slide this in between the gears, and it'll lock the gears in place for setting the timing. Makes it a lot easier. So, basically that's where I'm at. I'm going to clean this up and get that going. Figure while I'm at it, I'll enjoy some libation. I don't know if any of you guys are adult beverage connoisseurs, but if you really like craft beer and stuff. The stuff is really good. It's by BrewLink. It's called Nutter Cup. So it's a peanut butter porter. It's freaking amazing. It is freaking delicious. But yeah, really good if you like porters. The peanut butter just, it seems natural with this guy, like it was meant to be, to accompany this lovely beer. I'll be having a Julia R. Aurora Aladino in Cameroon. Cameroon is the origin of the tobacco used in the cigar. Cameroon as in Cameroon, Africa. Yeah, just freaking delicious. So anyways, while I clean this up, I'll be enjoying some nice relaxing things to make this process not so stressful. Let's get to it. Part, cracking these bolts loose. So most people, what they do is they just pull the head up off the head studs. That's not very, I mean, I guess you could do that, but you run the risk of damaging the head studs and damaging the head. So I pull the studs out. showtime here. Came off pretty easily.
To rip people off with a really obvious ruse. Like, if you're one of those late night people that can put hands on people.
This is kind of sad. So yeah, there we go. Heads off. I'm gonna clean this up and get around to getting the new head on. Alright, so this is day 3-ish of the head swap. Heads off. I have to clean the deck. I'm just going to use a wire brush and some brake cleaner, and hopefully that should clean off the deck. It's already pretty clean. It came off pretty smooth. The other thing I got to do is I have to swap some stuff over from the old head to the new head. The big one being the intake manifold. It's kind of important. So yeah, some small stuff, not some huge stuff. Not really sure which one I think I'm going to tackle the intake manifold first. That sounds like fun. So we'll go with that. So basically, dipping oil all over the place. So the nice thing about this manifold, you'll notice it's got two sets of holes here. The reason for this is because the BP4W or BP4W head, the positioning of the intake is actually, I believe, higher, or maybe it's lower. Anyways, it's a different position because the angle of the intake runner to the valve is steeper. It's some engineering mumbo jumbo, fluid dynamics stuff. But anyways, so the newer Miatas, the newer BP engines, 99 and up, they have a different intake flange. Ports are in a different position. So the nice thing about Skunk 2 intake is that it works with both. It's designed to, the flange is designed to work with both types of heads, the old head and the new head. So with that, we're basically done with this head. There's nothing else we need off of it. Alright. So yeah, this head was on a car for a very short amount of time. But it should be good. Everything's still flat. Everything's clean. Get some of that material off of there. Once again, brass brush. This will get sprayed down once again, one more time before I finalize it. Hopefully this will be fine. So I had to trim this here for the BP4W head. So yeah, in order to make this manifold fit the BP4W head, this little guy right here had to be trimmed, the mount for that. So I mean, there should be enough surface there to clamp that down, but it is what it is. So now what I'm going to do is I got to clean up some gasket surfaces. That's not very much fun. I got to clean this up. Show you what that looks like now. And then I'll show you the finished product when I'm done. That's what she looks like now. And we'll get back. I'll get back to you in just a moment. Alright, so it looks a little better. I think I'm going to try and clean the carbon off the pistons. And then after that, should be able to go ahead and lay the head on there. Alright, so got that clean. As clean as it's going to get. Deck is clean. Got the pistons fairly clean. I'll run some seafoam through it, see if that'll get the rest of the carbon off, but I'm tired of scrubbing. So I'm using a OEM Mazda head gasket. I had a Kinetic head gasket on there before, but from what I understand, the Kinetic one, or the OEM Mazda, I mean it's a multi-layer steel, it's as good as it's going to get. There's really no need to spend $100 and something bucks on a Kinetic when the Mazda one is built pretty stout. Right, so head gasket's on. I gotta do a little more work on the head, and then we'll get to getting that guy actually placed on the engine. There you go. It's this. So the later model Mazda VPs 99 and up, they don't have the distributor slash CAS. The crank angle sensor and the cam angle sensor are actually mounted on the back of the crank and on the front of the crank, the way it should be. So there's no CAS, but since I'm using an older car, I have to mount the distributor slash CAS system on there. So there's basically just a cap that normally it goes in there to build that in. We're going to do, go ahead and install that guy in there just like so. Probably want to actually put it in the right way. They actually removed the casting, the second casting for the other bolt hole. That's interesting. So hopefully this stays. It's gonna be fun. All right. So normally there's another casting here for the other half of the cast, and it's not on the head. So hopefully one is enough to hold that in place and keep it from leaking. It feels pretty solid, so hopefully that stays, you know. I really would prefer if there was another boss on the other side, but alright, so at this point I can go ahead and I can slap the head on the block. Let's see if I can slide this guy on here. son of a bitch is heavy. Head is on, so all I need to do, lube up my bolts and washers. So ARP sells this special lubricant that they developed for accurate, torque specs or whatever. Some people say you can just use plain moly lube. Some say you can use 30 weight oil. The torque specs change depending on what type of lube you're using. So, just for the sake of that, probably best to just go with, stuff they recommend. So it shows put it on the threads and the faces of the bolts and washers, or the nuts and washers. Alright, so I'm going to go to like 65 foot-pounds. That seems to be the go-to. The spec doesn't really mention like a sequence. Well, it mentions a sequence as far as the order, but as far as like doing a stepped torque sequence, like going to like 35 and then 45 and then 60 and so forth, the Miata spec doesn't really mention that, or the Mazda spec doesn't really mention that. So I'm gonna just, but I'm gonna do it anyways. I'm gonna like go to like 40 and then I'll take it up to 60 afterwards. Also, last chance to check and make sure there's nothing between the head and the block, like a wiring harness. I was just snugging them. I'm going to go to 40. That's a lot. Works up a little bit of a sweat. Whew, okay, alright. I'm just going to double check, make sure that they are all indeed at 60, and probably call it there. And with that, I think we're going to call it a night. Alright, so made a little bit of progress. What is that? What is happening? Oh, Jesus. Alright, so I made a little bit of progress. Head's back on. At this point, I just have to do all the buttoning up. I'm not going to film all of that. Because, I mean, like I said, you've seen all that type of stuff before. So I did get a new exhaust manifold gasket, because the one that I had been on the car, and off the car, and on the car, and off the car quite a few times. It wasn't even in one piece anymore. It had actually fallen apart, the 3 layers of it. So, it's a nice new gasket. I don't really know which way it's supposed to, I guess it doesn't matter. So yeah, I'm going to get that on, and then, like I said, I'll just button the rest of it up, and that'll be that. Alright, update to the update to the update. So, this little guy right here, pretty much fucking worthless. So, I feel like maybe that particular piece was manufactured wrong. I mean, it's 3D printed. I don't know. But anyways, I couldn't get the belt aligned while trying to use that thing. So I ended up just using the 2 wrenches and vice grips, and that worked great. So always timing belts on. Believe everything's in time. Just put the valve cover on. And just finish wiring stuff up. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to touch on the the cam gear tool did not work for me. So, anyways, I'm going to finish putting this guy back together and bring you guys back for the startup, hopefully. So yeah, I thought I'd go ahead and throw this in there. I'm running NGK iridium plugs. What the fuck that was? So anyways, yeah, I'm running NGK iridium plugs. Running them at the stock gap, which is 0.025. I could probably close that up a little bit, but I haven't had any issues with spark blowout, so I've just been running them at stock gap. Yeah, they seem to work pretty great with the Toyota coils. When I was on the stock coil, I had to gap them down to like 0.15. You know, they were pretty tight gap, but I think this is, God, sorry, I think the 0.25 is probably about perfect for these. Also, when you check iridium plugs, you want to use like a blade style filler gauge, because the tip on these guys is very fragile. You don't want to go digging in there of like you know, the round type keychain spark plug, you know, gapper. And if you gap these, there's a special tool you're supposed to use that actually clamps onto the strap and allows you to pry it back, because if you try and pry against that tip like you would with a copper plug, you break that tip off. So the part number on these, by the way, these are the NGK BKR 9EIX, I believe. Yeah, BKR 9EIX. So these are a heat range 9, which is about 4 steps colder than what like the factory BP would normally call for. Like if you looked up like the Mazda Miata, a Mazda Protege, or Ford Escort, I think it would be like a BKR 7 or a BKR 5. What NGK recommends is to go a step colder for every 75 to 100 horsepower added. So that's how I arrived at 9. Plus Carlos, you know, with Stanley runs these, so he recommended BKR 9. So that's what I run. Another note, these are also kind of expensive, about $10 a pop. So I think they're about the same, if not a little cheaper than platinum, but a lot more expensive than copper. But they last a lot longer than copper. So since I'm doing this, let me explain why that plug hole blew out on the old head. It was always bad, ever since I had the car. Like, you know how I was just basically tightening those by hand. You can feel when they want to stop. With that hole, I could never really feel that. It felt like it was always on the verge of stripping out, and I just kind of said I'd deal with it when it became an issue, and finally it became an issue when it blew the plug out. So anyways, good chance to upgrade though. So I'm gonna continue plugging along at this. Probably not gonna film it to conserve some battery and conserve some editing time for me. Just gonna voila it all back together. Hey, what's up? So figured I'd just point this out while it's apart. But anyways, this is that tile wastegate that I bought, you know, the official one. Look at that color. I mean, look at how beautiful that is. How it just turned one solid, beautiful tan color as it heated and cooled. The eBay one turned like all different, like gray and rusty and just weird colors. It was stainless, but it wasn't a very high quality stainless. But I mean, this is, look at that. That's beautiful. But anyways, I just thought to point that out. Same thing for the hardware. You know, it just turns this really nice gold color. Doesn't get all janky looking and nasty. So, hey, you know, maybe it's worth spending $250 or nearly $300. Actually, no, I think it was like $400. It was a lot, but anyways, you know, maybe it's worth spending the extra money on quality products every once in a while. Granted, the eBay one worked great for as long as it did until it bent the valve. But I mean, yeah, stuff just looks really nice. So anyways, yeah, she's all buttoned up, but not entirely buttoned up. She still got to put coolant in it. There's still some things that need to be tightened and whatnot, but I figure I'd go and do a test start before I get completely done, because would hate to get it completely done and then find out that it's got to come back apart. So anyways, let me throw the battery in and give her a quick little crank. Enough to get the oil flowing. Probably also flooded the engine. Didn't think about that. Forgot. It's completely out of time right now, so forgot I had the distributor off, so gotta figure that out. That is so much quieter if the solid lifter's in there. Well, anyways, we'll call that a success. I'll get some coolant in it, get the timing set and all that stuff, and then get back to you. Till next time, guys.